Folks, welcome in to sportsbookreview.com. It's time to talk some NFL football on Thursday on our NFL show. Big game tonight between the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. 1 hour action-packed. And as we like to say, Kyle, on Thursdays, our pencils are sharpened. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. Let's get after it, Kyle. 1 hour. What you say, huh?
I'm excited. I mean, hey, it's got to be something good to pull me away from the Masters for an hour. And as much as I wanted to just take your face off the screen and just watch the Masters, I decided we're going to focus on football. Really happy to be in this week. You know, it's interesting. We were sort of talking about this, a couple games sort of off the board as they wait for things to happen. And early in the year, you're like, oh, hell, what do we do? Now it's like, you just kind of go with the flow. I feel good about everything. I don't know if it's just all the cool sports, the holiday season, but I'm feeling good. I'm excited for tonight's game, a great game tonight. I'm looking forward to week 10. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, Kyle's all pumpkin spiced up there out in Oregon, getting ready for some action tonight. It should be a good game tonight. We'll talk about that in just a few moments, but over 50 people already waiting to get here in the chat box. Thank you guys for that. How about this, Kyle? Look, hey, this is good stuff, man. 73,500 people have now hit the subscribe button to sportsbookreview.com right here on our YouTube channel. That is awesome stuff. Turn those notification bells on. Me and Kyle come on live to talk a little NFL action. You'll get it delivered directly to your inbox, and also the Pick 6 contest. If you're not in it yet, it's a pretty good chance you probably can't win the finale prize since you missed 9 weeks already, but still get in weeks 10 through 16. You can cash in on some of those weekly prizes. So get in that. If you missed out, hit sbrpicks.com/pick6, and that will enter you in there directly. And also, if you miss any shows and content, that link will take you directly through. Make yourself a smarter gambler. Hit those links. Certainly talk some NFL football. Thank you for coming into the chat box. Micah, Ezra, Jose, James, DFS Bachelor's in here as well. Sean, MCK, Steven, welcome in. AA, he says the Titans money line. Boy. We're going to talk about that in just a few moments here, but let's get after it. 1 hour action packed a little bit later in the show. Kelsey Kramer will join us as well to talk some Pick 6 action and see who she likes on this week, but we got some good things to go over. Let's kick it off tonight. Thursday night football. Sometimes we get some of those games like, can't believe the NFL put this game on, but this is a good one here in the AFC South. 121-122, Indianapolis, Tennessee. Phillip Rivers goes into town with Ryan Tannehill. Kyle, you know me. When I like the Indianapolis Colts, and I usually have a pretty good read on them, last week my best bet and banker was against the Colts, and the Baltimore Ravens pulled that game out. So now we're going to look from a different edge because I usually like the Indianapolis Colts with Phillip Rivers inside a dome without any weather to worry about. He is going outside tonight, Kyle, but we're talking about 60-degree weather, light winds, so theoretically dome-like conditions if you like the Indianapolis Colts with some interesting line movement throughout the week. Pinnacle opened up as a 2.5. And, when you see that first open, you say, hey, maybe I can wait on that and get to a 3. Didn't happen here. Not only did that not happen, it actually swung, and now we have a favorite across the board as the Colts a -1, an over-under that opened up 50.5 offshore at SBRodds.com. Now we're seeing that come lower, 49s, even 48.5s that have circulated across the board. To get it off start early, we'll go over some picks and props a little bit later, but just to break down this game itself, I'm going to tell you why in just a few moments I'm leaning towards the Indianapolis Colts. What are some of your preliminary thoughts here on this game tonight on Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you, this game, I went back and forth in this game. I really did, and you're right, we like Phillip Rivers in the dome. But then you look at this matchup, good weather out there in Tennessee, no wind, warm weather. And then you look, when you dig deeper, the Tennessee Titans have the worst pass rush in the NFL. I mean, it's not even close. It's kind of sad. Adoree Jackson's still not going to be back. He is activated, but he won't be back. So that secondary will certainly shore up once they have Butler, Jackson, and the newly acquired Desmond King in the slot. But, man, when do you like Phillip Rivers? When he's got time to throw, a clean pocket, when he's not rushed or hurried. You don't have any injuries on that offensive line. So you've got the worst pass rush in the league. Still a beatable secondary, good weather, and a great offensive line. So I think the line is right. I think the Colts should be marginal favorites because they do have a exponentially better defense. I thought you had a great tweet out today that I saw on your Twitter feed talking about the impact of Darius Leonard on that defense when he's healthy. And it's true. I think it's going to be tough for Derrick Henry to run the ball. The secondary is pretty good. There are some weaknesses in the slot with Kenny Moore, and then on the other side with Rock Ya-Sin. We obviously have the injury to Adam Humphries, which is sort of a big injury in the slot for Tennessee. Cameron Batson, if you're playing DraftKings, $200. I think he's the sleeper play of the night there. I think he gets a few catches. But right now, I am leaning the Indianapolis Colts. I think Tennessee has a slightly better offense, no doubt about it. Tannehill's certainly more explosive. But that Colts defense, you mentioned it earlier on that tweet, under 300 yards allowed per game when Darius Leonard is on the field. I think that makes a difference tonight. Slight edge to the Colts. Very scared to bet on this game. I think around a pick 'em -1 is about right. These are two evenly matched teams.
No, I think you're on the right track, because when you take a look at the Indianapolis Colts and you say, hey, Donnie, you like the Indianapolis Colts most weeks. Why did you like Baltimore last week? It's a function of the offensive line that Indianapolis has. They can bully just about every defensive line in front seven that they see in football, and they should be able to do that tonight. The one thing you don't do, Kyle, against that front seven versus the Baltimore Ravens is bully them and out-physical them. I knew that was going to be a problem, and it was last week. But now you start taking a look at that defensive line. And again, Jadeveon Clowney will be back this week, but outside of pressures, hasn't really been getting home on the sacks. And if you give Phillip Rivers that clean pocket, he should have optimal time, 2 decent tight ends, good wide receivers. And keep in mind also, another reason last week that you're looking to go against Indianapolis, if you don't have T.Y. Hilton, who hasn't been that good statistically, but opening up the field, that is a big indicator. He's going to have him back tonight in the lineup. So Phillip Rivers should have time to throw in the pocket, and you should be able to extend the field. But also when you take a look more to your point where I was talking about Darius Leonard not in the lineup, that is a huge difference, because when you take a look at 2 games he's out, the opposing offenses get damn near 400 yards, and then in the other 6 games he plays, the average is 256-yard average. Like 300 is like we like to joke, you get 300 if you just sign your name on the SATs. An NFL team gets 300 yards just by taking the field. 256. Now, look, a middle linebacker, he's going to be able to control the ground game, and that is key tonight when you go up against Derrick Henry, because I think if we look talent-wise, offense to offense, it's clear to me the Tennessee Titans have the more talent on offense. But when you go game by game and take a look at this Indianapolis offense going against, I don't want to say substandard defense, because Tennessee does have a decent defense, but also coupled by the fact the Indianapolis Colts have only been outgained 1 time this year by an opponent, despite having 3 losses. They'll be in this game, and it gives you a little bit of confidence when it swings over. Now, I do laugh when I see this, Kyle, because it opens up 2.5 and swings to 1. And I see people say, ooh, now that it goes to +1, I like the Titans. So if I can theoretically process how you looked at this game, you didn't think Tennessee would really win by 3, but now you really like them that they're getting 1 point. Come on now. If you like the game either way, it doesn't matter where this point swing goes, because if you like the Colts to begin with, you expected them to win. The same thing with the Tennessee Titans. Right. I like the Indianapolis Colts in this spot tonight. The one thing I did miss out on, though, Kyle, because I like to take first halves, I would have loved the fact if Indianapolis somehow swung back to a +1 and you can get a +0.5 in the first half, meaning if the Colts are up, you win. If the Colts are tied, you still win that bet. But I'm going to go full game in this one. Not in love with it, but I do like the Colts -1. How about you tonight?
Yeah, I'm with you on the Colts. And you bring up a great point. Like, it's so weird. Like, there are scenarios where a half point matters or a point matters, but not when you're taking an underdog and it's 2 or 2.5. That means you expect them to, like, how many 1 or 2 point games are there? I think it's something like 17%. I'd have to double check that number. It's very low. So now that it switches to 1, you're like, oh, I just want that 1 point. I mean, what the hell is that really going to do for you? It doesn't make much sense. I've liked the Colts throughout the week. I think it's very, very close. I don't think you're an idiot for betting on Tennessee. They could certainly win this game.
Sure.
That's why, for me personally, I didn't put any money on either side on this game. I'm going to sit back and watch the game. I have a couple props I like we'll talk about later in the show. But right now, I'm going to give Tennessee has a slight edge on offense. I do think the Colts defense is set up to stop the strengths of the Titans offense. And then when you look at the other side, I know you said Tennessee has a decent defense. They haven't been decent this year. And I do think that will get better in the coming weeks as Adoree Jackson gets back, et cetera, and Desmond King gets more used to what's going on in that secondary, and maybe Jadeveon Clowney gets a little healthy and can add a pass rush. But tonight you're going to have a clean pocket for Phillip Rivers unless something changes drastically in what Tennessee's been doing. So I am leaning the Colts. If I was picking a side tonight, it would be the Indianapolis Colts on the road.
Yeah, the Titans demolished the Chicago Bears last week through 3 quarters. Then you see the final score 24-17. It really didn't add up. But we always talk about, like, do your own type of numbers, do your own type of work, because if you look at like Pro Football Focus, they have Tennessee Titans as a top 10 NFL defense coming into it with the Indianapolis Colts number 5. So there's always some interesting indicators out there. Tennessee is a very good football team. And who would have ever thought in the past that I myself would be on a TV or a YouTube show talking about I'm taking a road team on Thursday night, but that's how 2020 has actually been. It's outrageous. We'll circle back around at the end of the show, go over this game once again for a brush over. And also both Kyle and myself do have some prop bets that we like to hit on these games. Let's get to the Sunday NFL card here. Some of these games you are going to have to, push forward and focus on as if this game is going to take place, which it should, but who are the actual participants? We might not be able to get that off into our Sunday NFL card, 12 p.m. right here on Sportsbook Review. But let's hit it right in order, 2:53, 2:54, 1 p.m., Washington and Detroit. Alex Smith slated to be the starter, as well as Matthew Stafford. If you didn't watch last week in a blowout victory by the Minnesota Vikings, Matthew Stafford did sustain a concussion, did already practice this week. He's well on his way through protocols. He should start, but also Alex Smith on the opposite side. I know there were some rumblings you're going to go back to Dwayne Haskins. I don't think that's going to be the case. So we're anticipating a line of 4.5 in this football game. 4 to 4.5 is what it looks like it's going to be between Detroit and Washington. Here's my issue, Cup. It's not that I don't think Detroit is a decent football team and can win the game at home, because Mr. Dink and Dunk Alex Smith is back for more this week. We'll see what can happen. Got the team back into the game last week versus the New York Giants. Threw a couple interceptions in the fourth quarter, which is the ultimate demise of the Redskins or Washington football team in that game. When we look at it this week, it's simple to me. I don't trust Detroit as a favorite. If you're going to give me more than a field goal, I think Alex Smith and the Washington Redskins are competent enough to hang around in this football game. And it looks like we're not going to get Kenny Golladay for a second week. I don't trust that Detroit team as a favorite. So as is, until the official lines come back across the board, I'm going to lean on taking the points here with the Washington football team.
Yeah, and I think it was, 3.5, and that's probably where you'll see it come Sunday. And hey, what a better way to say, be sure to join us on Sunday morning, 1 hour before kickoff, when we have these full lines and we give our final picks here. So be sure to join us for that. But I think you're right. And look, Antonio Gibson was a little banged up as well in practice, dealing with a shoulder issue. But I think that fits really nicely to what Alex Smith likes to do, which is these short passes to J.D. McKissic. If he's available in your fantasy football leagues right now, J.D. McKissic's a fantastic PPR pickup, even if Antonio Gibson does play. But without Kenny Golladay now, I think that Washington defense sort of goes under the radar. They can get after the quarterback. They can get things done. And without Kenny Golladay, you sort of lose this big play upside. So assuming that Washington will come in 3.5, maybe 4-point underdogs in this game, I think it's going to be around 3.5. I'm going to take the points and take Washington. I just don't trust the Lions without Kenny Golladay. He's a big part of that team, and I think the Washington defense can get after Matthew Stafford. I know he cleared concussion protocol on Monday, so it's weird that the line still isn't back up. But I don't love betting on Alex Smith. I have a love-hate relationship with Alex Smith. This year I'm going to love him. This week I'm going to love him. Let's hope his leg doesn't fly out into the damn stands. Let's really hope his leg doesn't fly out in the stands. And let's hope they start keeping the kids home for these games. Detroit's not a great pass rush, so that's good. But I don't want to see his kids up in the stands anymore. It was cool for the first game, but it seems really reckless for the rest of the year. But right now I got to lean Washington. I'm just not a big believer in Detroit this year, especially without Kenny Golladay. And not to mention Jeff Okudah, who has not been very good in an already bad secondary. He's been banged up in practice too. So Detroit's just so bad defensively. I think Washington has enough to get it done this week.
Yeah, Okudah's been definitely a bust this year, and you can't bust out a top five cornerback. Supposed to be plug and play. You're supposed to get Jalen Ramsey every time you take a top five cornerback, and it just doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. And really, what is with Washington and snapped legs at quarterback over the years? I mean, why do you had Joe Theismann way back in the day, obviously Alex Smith, and you get last week Allen as well. But I do think Alex Smith can keep this game close. I don't know if they can win, but I trust the overall coaching scheme. I trust the front seven more from Washington. No fans in the stands. Keep that game close there. I like the Washington football team in this one. Let's keep moving here. 255, 256, Houston and Cleveland. Red alert in this game because we anticipated tons of points, fun going up and down the field. Nick Chubb coming back. Oh, my goodness. Cleveland off a bye. We know what Deshaun Watson can do now that Bill O'Brien is not around that football team. But here we go with some of the windier conditions, 25-mile-an-hour plus winds expected in this game in Cleveland. Last time we saw 25-plus-mile-an-hour winds, you could barely kick a field goal from 30 yards. And if that is the case, you'd be hard-pressed to take an over. Yeah, hey, look, Houston's defense is really bad. We get that. Deshaun Watson is really good. It's a great combination for an over, looking from a Texans perspective. And the same thing could be said by Cleveland. Average defense, and that ground game should be able to run over that Houston defense. But if you can jam 8 or 9 in the box because it's not advantageous to throw deep, that really leaves you back in play with Houston. Even saw some people asking today on Twitter, and it makes sense. Hey, wouldn't you lean more to Cleveland in this environment? That 1-2 punch with Chubb and Kareem Hunt should be able to control on the ground. I agree with that. But also, when you're in bad conditions, what is better with bad conditions here, Kyle? When you drop back and you say, hey, I got Deshaun Watson. The pocket is breaking down. Let me get up out of this pocket and make something happen. That's what I look forward to. I think that line is perfect at 3.5, but also we're not meteorologists here sitting here on a Thursday. So if you nail this game, hey, it was at 54, now it's at 49 as a total, and it gets to game day and we only have 15-mile-an-hour winds and sunny conditions, you might want to hold off because that number is long gone. If you're still getting 55s out there, 54s from a local, fantastic, bang it because, hey, if you thought the game was going under, it's only a bonus now with bad weather. But now we're talking about that 49 range. You might want to hold off. Tough game for me to pick here on a Thursday. If I had my druthers, I would think Houston would be able to keep this game close just for not trusting Baker Mayfield. But I need to see the wind and the weather to make a certain definitive answer on this one, Kyle.
Yeah, me too. And right now it looks, every report that I can find from anyone who's sort of credible and look, weathermen suck. I mean, we all know, unless you're Willard Scott or, Al Roker, you just don't know the weather. And I'm sort of joking there. But it does sort of look like it's going to emulate that Raiders-Cleveland game we just saw a couple weeks ago. And, we saw what Cleveland's offense looked like. They could not do anything. I know. Yeah, 16-6 in that game? Yep. And the total in that game started, I believe, at 53.5, 54, and ended up being, it came way, way down. So I actually did, once I saw this report yesterday, I jumped in and took the under. It was at 52.5, I think, when I took it. So I went ahead and took it because it'd be weird if they're that far off. Now, you look at the Houston side, David Johnson, just saw the report now, did not practice again today and is not expected to play. So now you're relying on Duke Johnson. Duke Johnson, the former Cleveland Brown, you would think, maybe revenge game. Is it really a revenge game when they overtrade for you and trade like a second-round pick? Like Bill O'Brien literally traded a second-round pick for Duke Johnson. Think about that. Like, just let that sink in for a second. I do think Duke Johnson's a nice waiver wire pickup for your fantasy football league teams, a nice DFS option this week. But I do think you're right. I think Cleveland has the better running game. And if you look at Houston really struggles against the run. So if I'm picking a side, which again, all I took was the under on this game, I feel pretty good about it. Let's hope that weather stays nasty. If it doesn't, then, I'll get it wrong. And that's what I get for, scared money doesn't make money. You got to take a chance sometimes. So I took a chance on it and I took the under in this game. But I think if you're just looking at the sides and how this sort of, if you think the weather's going to be poor, who it favors, it obviously favors Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt over Duke Johnson and possibly an unthrowable football out there in Cleveland. So I lead in the Cleveland Browns, but I really like the under in this game.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, when you take a look at it, because you saw some of the videos coming out because, advantageous now, 20 years ago, we're not getting practice clips, that we can readily be available on Twitter. But Nick Chubb came out in the brace on Wednesday, but shedded the brace today on Thursday, which is a really good sign because when Cleveland puts out like, hey, look, he's back at practice, and you see that brace on his knee, he's like, man, can I really trust him? But the fact that he was able to take that off and get in a practice today as well, that bodes well. And you're right. You're talking about one of the elite offensive lines when it is healthy for the Cleveland Browns, and also expected back possibly this week is Wyatt Teller, one of the best guards in football to plow open those rushing lanes and really get after it. But again, when we are bettors, we are creatures of habit. And what we see is what we see. When you say, hey, another bad weather game in Cleveland, you raise your hand and be like, look, they played the Raiders defense, which is very comparable to the Houston Texans defense, and got 6 points at home. Now you're telling me I need to get back in on the Cleveland Browns. I understand that full well, but I want to give it a little bit of time here. If it's 3.5 on a Thursday, which it is, I'm leaning towards the Houston Texans, and still it's sitting at 49. If we're going to have high windy conditions, they want to put the football on the ground. That's exactly correct. I still lean towards the under as well. Yeah. Some other weather conditions we'll deal with here on Sunday, Kyle, 257, 258. The Jacksonville Jaguars and Jake Luton going up to play the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, and what looks like now a healthy Aaron Rodgers-led offense. When you add Aaron Jones back to that offense, a big play running back, it is special, and Devontae Adams looks like he can't be covered by anybody and looking to get another 10 to 15 targets in this game. We'll see if Allen Lazard makes his way back from the IR as well. More weapons for Aaron Rodgers. But again, You're looking at some of those windy conditions. The last time we saw Green Bay in some windy conditions in Green Bay, they took a loss to the Minnesota Vikings. But look, not every team has Dalvin Cook. We say, hey, we can't do anything. Hey, Dalvin, do something for us over here. And he goes to dominate the football game because it's a much less talented offense coming to play here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I liked what I saw of the young kid at quarterback for Jacksonville. Made some nice throws. He doesn't look overwhelmed in the pocket, but he's still a rookie. Made some dumb throws that should have been intercepted and weren't doing that. I think the toll comes to be this weekend where you're playing a better Green Bay team here, a more focused Green Bay team, a little bit extra rested Green Bay team. They should win easy. But again, we are gamblers. We're not just picking the game as they pick them. You're talking about a 14-point line that moved down to 13.5. Is that enough to jump in on this? Because I do think Green Bay is going to carry this football game. But still, same point that I just made in the Cleveland game. I just saw them in windy conditions at home, and they lost outright. Now, Minnesota, better offense to me, yes. Young quarterback coming in for Jacksonville, yes. 14 points is a lot, man. So if I'm looking towards even an over in this game, how much is that going to impact it? Because if you have a rookie quarterback, Kyle, for Jacksonville, in the wind, are we throwing it all over the place in Lambeau, or are we going to lean on our running game to see what happens here? That's the tough call in this one.
Yeah, and I think even if it wasn't windy, they're going to lean on their running game. Why? Because Green Bay is soft and cannot stop the run. They haven't been able to in years, and that's not going to suddenly change this week. Even though Jacksonville's offense and defense, the whole team has been anemic and not necessarily, they're basically what we expected they would be, one of the worst teams in the league, and forced to throw the ball a lot. James Robinson has actually sort of been a revelation, one of those undrafted free agent type running backs, and he's played really, really well. So I do think they would lean on the run anyways. Now you take this weather, and it makes it a whole different ball game. Something to keep an eye out for Green Bay, obviously, is Jair Alexander. He did not practice yesterday. I don't know about today. I haven't got that updated report
I don't
yet.
think he did either today. I don't think he did
There
either.
we go, in the concussion protocol. So that will make things a little bit easier on the outside for DJ Chark, Chris Conley, Keelan Cole, etc. The recipe is there for Jacksonville to cover this. Obviously, I don't trust Jacksonville, so I'm not going to bet them in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not going to bet a 13.5-point favorite in a game that's going to be down in the 30s or 40s with, possibly 20 to 25 mile an hour winds. It just doesn't make any damn sense. I think it's the rushing attacks are good. I would probably lean the under in this game right now. Again, I wouldn't bet it today. I would wait till closer to kickoff because I did see a couple reports where this weather could actually tame in Green Bay, and the reports this week have been a little bit harsh. So maybe the game conditions ease up a little bit going into the game. This is a really, really tough one for me. If this was just standard conditions, obviously I would take Green Bay. I mean, Devontae Adams has one of the best matchups on the outside against Sidney Jones, giving up nearly a half fantasy point per route ran against. They've been absolutely torched, giving up the third most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers, fifth most to quarterbacks. Just all the stats just line up for Green Bay to beat the absolute snot out of Jacksonville. You just want to make sure that those conditions are going to be conducive to it. If I'm betting aside, I'd say Green Bay. Again, I'm staying away from it. And again, I'll take the under because of the weather situation. I will stress the last time I did that, I did hit the under, but it was very, very close in that Minnesota-Green Bay game. That Green Bay defense is worse than people think, and the Jacksonville defense is one of the worst in the league. So
He opened up at 53 as a total in that game, now down to 50s across the board at most outlets. And again, we talked about the 13.5. Gerald Martinez says Rodgers will pick them apart. Abel says Packers might take the Jags lightly, and the Jags cover the spread. Yep. And Eric Swell says, when are you guys coming back out to Vegas to check out the new Circa Sportsbook?
Soon.
Well, maybe COVID-19, when that's a wrap, who knows where we will be traveling around the country and having some fun out here. But that game, interesting in Green Bay, because you want to believe the last time you saw them, hey, they got it together, they're healthy now. I saw them dismantle the 49ers on the road, one of those teams that they really struggle with, now going back to Green Bay. But 13 is a big number in this one. Should they get it? Absolutely, they should get it. And I think the young quarterback will struggle on the road, specifically with some windy conditions as well. 13.5, I just don't think I'm interested in laying that high of a number. Now, here we go back to the East Coast, and my Philadelphia Eagles, 259, 260. Carson Wentz going up against Daniel Jones. 6 out of every 10 tickets here at SBRodds.com coming in on the Philadelphia Eagles. This line opened up soft at 3.5, sits at 3 with heavy juice, some soft 3.5. So not a lot of line movement from that perspective, but we had some movement from an opening line of around 41.5 offshore for the total. that now sits at 45.5, and I completely agree with that because I look at both of these team totals here, depending on where you're shopping at. 24 for the Eagles. If you get the 23.5, which is out there, I do think the Eagles hit that. But also the same thing with the New York Giants around that 19.5 range. I think they can get to 20 points as well. The big differentiating factor in this game is, Doug Peterson hasn't been great coming out of the bye week, but this is a little bit different coming out of the bye week than in the past. You're going up against a NFC East opponent, but again, you're going on the road. There are no fans that are going to be in the stands to make any noise. But the Philadelphia Eagles are almost getting a hockey line change infusion of talent coming back into the lineup. Miles Sanders, Alshon Jeffrey, Lane Johnson should be back. Your starting middle linebacker is going to be back in this football game, and a whole host of other players that didn't play in that first contest, which again, the Eagles were down 10 points late in the fourth quarter, pulled out a miracle victory. The Eagles are the stronger football team, and I think they're stamp their mark, because if you're looking for a a division championship, it goes through the NFC East by winning all these games. I think the Eagles do win out in the division. We'll see if they can pick off maybe a game or two down the line against some of the upper echelon teams, which I do think they will in the NFL any given Sunday. Somebody's eventually going to win some of these games, but I do like the Eagles at the -3 in this game. I do think the total goes over, and I agree with both of the Eagles team totals and the Giants team totals hitting here.
Yeah, no, this was one of the games early in the week. You mentioned it, all the talent coming back, and we've sort of seen that work both ways. We saw it actually in one game with Tampa Bay, New Orleans, right? We saw New Orleans getting a bunch of players back who hadn't been there, and they looked sharp. And then we saw Tampa Bay getting Godwin back, adding Antonio Brown, not so sharp, right? But I think the continuity that Wentz has with Jeffrey, obviously Dallas Goedert, another week to sort of get into form after making his return last week, Miles Sanders being back. Then you look at the Giants practice report, looks like their favorite wide receiver, Golden Tate, hurt himself in practice today. And
on purpose.
Yeah. Is he really hurt, or are they just, I have absolutely no idea. Sterling Shepard, they've been listing him as a limited participant. He's going to play. I just think the Philadelphia Eagles are a better team all around. And then when you look at that front seven, they should be able to pressure Daniel Jones. And what happens to Daniel Jones when he's pressured? He makes mistakes. He turns the football over. Now, both of these quarterbacks are in the top, 3 or 4 in the league, right there with Kirk Cousins, et cetera, in terms of turning the football over. And I do think the Giants defense has played better in recent weeks, and we saw them play pretty well against Tampa Bay a couple weeks ago on Monday Night Football. But I just think the Eagles are the all-around better team. I like that the weapons are coming back. I like Carson Wentz more than I like Daniel Jones. I will say the Eagles, this is one of my favorite picks of the week. I like them 3.5. I think they win this game by a touchdown or more. So give me your division-leading, barn-burning Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, also keep in mind, Isaac Seumalo, their best guard left there, he is coming back as well for this weekend. So this is as healthy a Philadelphia Eagles team as you're going to probably see the entire, at least for the first snap of the game before they all get injured again once the game starts going. But this is a shot they have the chance to get back, being back on turf. Again, Alshon Jeffrey comes back in any capabilities. Even though he's been much maligned, he's still an upgrade over a lot of the guys they have. So you put in Fulgham, Alshon Jeffrey, and also Jalen Reagor in that offense, mix in a little Ward. You get Dallas Goedert back in this game, who didn't play in the last Giants game. So you do have some weapons that you can work with. So maybe you'll see Carson Wentz doesn't have to feel like he has to be Superman every single play. But I think the point that makes it more valid here, Kyle, is what you said. Number 2 overall pass rush in football on the defensive line. That is the Philadelphia Eagles. If you're winning your one-on-one battles up front, you put pressure on Daniel Jones. He will fumble the football just like Carson Wentz will. And that usually bodes well because, hey, if you're on your own 25, 30, 40-yard line, take a sack, lose the football, I think this game gets over. We don't have any weather conditions here on the East Coast. That mid, 55, 60 degrees, 10-mile-an-hour winds, that's average weather up there in the Meadowlands, and you'll take that each and every time. Look for a good game in this one, and I do think the Giants will play hard. They've been doing it under Joe Judge, but I just don't think they're good enough here to knock off the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll keep moving it down the list. 1 o'clock on Sunday, 261, 262. This is an interesting game that we're going to bring up because you're looking at a team that got browbeaten, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against here the Carolina Panthers. And you're taking a look at the Panthers last week, who were very game, and which I think probably is the best overall team in football, the Kansas City Chiefs. But they lose Christian McCaffrey really late in that ball game, and he was awesome. You're talking about 10 catches out of the backfield, exactly what you expected him to just come back and get plugged right into the lineup and be dominant. He's now going to miss this game. But I think it all comes down to, what are we getting out of Tampa Bay? Because when I look at this game, it opens up at 48 and immediately goes to 50.5. Because if you don't have have any weather conditions and you say, hey, Teddy can move the football and, Tom Brady's got a lot of weapons, I see the move for that 50. But I think Tampa Bay has to recenter itself in the football universe. And what I mean by that is you have a really good offensive line. Tom Brady is not that mobile anymore. Yes, you have 3 elite wide receivers, or what should be elite wide receivers, in Godwin, Brown, and now also obviously Mike Evans, and mix in a little Scotty Miller. That's a formidable shot. But they have to get back to doing what they do, because I don't like Leonard Fournette all that much, but he's a decent NFL running back. Ronald Jones II is a better than decent running back. If you're working back off the running game and play action and giving your running backs a legitimate shot to gain yards, because there was a time when Ronald Jones II was gaining, a couple straight games of 100 yards, that offense was moving, and we were talking about Tampa Bay getting back to the Super Bowl. If they recenter that offense and focus on the running game, those wide receivers will be wide open down the field this week against the Carolina Panthers. But having said that, they open up at 6. They dip down to 5.5 at some outlets. It's an interesting move and a ticket split here that we're looking at about 50-50. A lot of people liking that home dog in Carolina. Well-coached team. Teddy underdog always gets the cover, it seems like. But I look for a recentering of Tampa Bay. Come out, run the football, establish yourself. I think Tampa Bay can go on the road and win this game by a touchdown, even though it was so porous on New Orleans. You're not the same football team week to week. They're a much, much better football team than when they showed. Just hand the football off, guys. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, and it would make a lot of sense this week. You're absolutely right. Carolina is actually pretty good against the pass. They're a sort of bend, don't break secondary, and they've got some bigger corners. A guy like Rasul Douglas can sort of shadow Mike Evans and compete. He's a 6'2 corner out there. And then, everything else, they play a lot of cover 3. So Carolina's secondary, not terrible, but they do struggle against the run. So the recipe is run the football, use play action, and beat this team. Look, Carolina's been very good to me this year, including last week. They got me the over. They covered the spread, that 10.5-point spread they had against Kansas City. They've been very good to me. Well, now you look, they get that infusion of offense last week, right, with Christian McCaffrey back. And then it's taken away. They go back to Mike Davis, who filled in very, very well. I just think Tampa Bay is pissed. When you're embarrassed like that and you're a top echelon team and you get your ass handed to you, for lack of a better term, at home against your biggest rival in the division, and Tom Brady in prime time, and then they're always showing the graphic, Tom Brady ahead of Drew Brees for the all-time touchdown list, and then Brees just screams by you. I think you see this. This is more of, I do think that Carolina is a good enough team to cover the spread, but I do think Tampa is really good. I think they're going to be really focused, and I think they come out and beat the brakes off Carolina. I think they win this game by a touchdown or more. I think you see a very motivated team. You sort of look at the injury report. I know Levante David left that game with an injury, came back in. He's practicing on a limited basis. He should be there. The one matchup I would say Carolina has the advantage is in the slot. Curtis Samuel and even DJ Moore lines up in the slot on occasion about 25% of the time. Against Sean Murphy bunting, that is a weakness in that Tampa Bay defense, and we saw it last week. I just think they're too motivated this week. Angry, embarrassed. I like that this is under a touchdown, and I will, of course, like that Christian McCaffrey's out, even though Tampa Bay is terrific against opposing running backs. So I like Tampa Bay in this one. Most weeks, if Tampa would have won last week, I probably would lean Carolina. I know that's weird to say. I just think they're too motivated this week, too good of a team, too well coached, too much leadership to not respond after a beating like that at home last week.
Yeah, and it's interesting to watch because you saw last week, and the one thing that New Orleans doesn't get credit for, that is an elite defense in the NFL. I mean, they can get after you on the pass rush, a good secondary, well-coached and thought out. Now you get a team, and Matt Rule's team always plays to win, but they're not as talented up front on that front seven to pressure Tom Brady. Because the one thing we know from an aging quarterback, when you look at the Nick Foles of the world, the Tom Bradys, the guys that can't move, same thing with Phillip Rivers, as we say a lot, if you pressure them, they're not as effective. I think this week you're getting some help back. Ali Marpet should be back as your guard, one of the better guards in football. Yeah. I think they'll be able to stave that off, but hand the football off, take the pressure off Tom Brady, use play action. They should be able to move the ball. So when you take a look at that 50.5 as a total, let's say, well, hey, Donnie, you're saying, why don't they just run the ball? Doesn't that eat up the clock? Not necessarily, because when you have dominant weapons at wide receiver and that run game is really effective, you're pulling that ball, pulling it back out, and all of a sudden those linebackers are crashing and the safeties are biting. How many times you see Mike Evans get over the top? He should be able to get back to doing that this weekend. Interesting game to look at. We're going to head to the West Coast now. Denver and Las Vegas, 265, 266, keeping this right in order. A lot of 4 o'clock games this week, which I do approve of. Denver and Las Vegas, Lock versus Carr, opened up at 4.5, rose to around 5. Now we're seeing a buyback here on the Denver Broncos, which is interesting because most people look at that and say, hey, the Raiders are at home. They should be able to win this game. It's only a touchdown. I hear you on that. But as the week has gone on, buying in more and more to the Denver Broncos, the only problem, it's very tough on the Broncos offense. And what I mean by that is, when Drew Lock is on and he's in rhythm, he's a really good young quarterback. But when he's not in rhythm, as you saw the first 3 quarters versus the Atlanta Falcons, it can get ugly. They only had 6 points entering into the fourth quarter before they scored 3 times. A lot of that a little bit in mop-up duty. But also when you look at Denver, the defense isn't all that bad. You say, well, hey, last week they didn't allow 300 yards to Atlanta, even though it looked bad early. But the one thing you have to factor on, AJ Boye and also Callahan should be back. That's your 2 starting quarterbacks that was expected to be one of the better tandems in the NFL. And even if you look at some certain metrics here, Callahan is a top 5 NFL quarterback. He was supposed to go last week. They were extra cautious on game day, sat him down, which is what we talked about on the 12 o'clock show. So, hey, he should be able to get some touchdowns here out of Julio Jones. And that was right because he didn't have much resistance. If they both come back, that's really going to be a boom for that Denver defense. A division game, no home fans for the Raiders. I'm buying in on Denver here on a Thursday.
Yeah, getting AJ Bouye back is a big deal. Now, one thing I do want to keep an eye on, it looks like he practiced in a limited capacity today, is Jerry Jeudy for Denver, clearly turning into one of these explosive, sort of young wide receivers. And, we kind of have a matchup of those 2, first-round explosive guys, Ruggs versus Jeudy. If Judy's unable to play, we know Noah Fant's going to play. He's been battling this ankle injury all year, which is really frustrating because he's such an explosive, good young tight end. Look at the other side, Darren Waller. This one for me feels like a 50-50 game. So when I look at 50-50 games, to make it fairly simple here, I'm going to take the points every time. Derek Carr, obviously a slight upgrade over Drew Lock. Raiders just a little bit healthier. One big loss for the Raiders could be Alec Ingold if he doesn't play. And I know people are like, oh,
said he's going to play, though, which is crazy. Yeah. That's how tough-ass those fullbacks are. Man.
Yeah, he's a tough guy, man. He's the modern-day Tom Rathman. He really is. That's what he is. I love Alec Ingold. 2 fractured ribs, and the guy's going to play. We'll have to see how effective he is. But he is important to that team. He does a lot of things for that team. Just think, Denver, this is going to be a close game. This game, to me, will be decided by Brandon McManus or Daniel Carlson, the kickers, unfortunately, because I bleeping hate kickers. But when I look at a game like this, and I'm pretty 50-50 on it, and I can't take a side, give me the points, give me the nice stadium conditions, no fans. Denver should be able to cover in this game. But, of course, it won't shock me if the Raiders win. I do think the Raiders are a slightly better football team.
No, I do as well. And the more of the wild card, I'm more confident that Carr will have I don't want to say a big game, but a more competent game than Drew Lock. But Drew Lock has that a bit. We've seen fourth quarters where he's been electric and amazing, but also keep in mind one of those games where you're dealing with the 2 starting quarterbacks for Denver. If you get a Friday practice report tomorrow that says they're both good to go, that is a major boost for that defense, and that's really going to pay dividends here on Sunday. So we'll see how that comes in. Good game to look at there in the AFC West. Buffalo and Arizona, another good one, 405 on Sunday, 267, 268 on the rotation. 6 out of every 10 tickets here coming in on the Buffalo Bills. We saw last week Arizona play a favored role, Kyle, versus Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins and come up a little bit short, no pun intended, on that field goal. But as we look down the list, opens up at 1. It's actually gaining here. Some 2.5s at some sharp books here that I'm looking at SBRodds.com. An over-under that opened up at 52, now sitting at 56.5 at some outlets. But I got to tell you, these are 2 offenses and 2 athletic quarterbacks that can really get after it. So last week, me going, hey, Seattle and Buffalo, they can really get after it. But everything has to go right with 55. Everything went right for the 55 last week. Yeah. So I'm not a believer in saying, hey, let me just sit on this because everything has to go right. Perfect weather conditions, 2 athletic quarterbacks that can get after it. I do see points in this game, but I'm struggling here because I love Arizona and that offense. But when I say, Kyle, or when I say trust-wise, Kyle, in this game, I still think I can trust the Buffalo defense a little bit more than I can trust the Arizona defense. And I do think Josh Allen comes to play. When Brown is healthy offside of Diggs, that offense can really get after it. Oh, it's a tough one, and it's a very
tough.
public play to take Buffalo. But I got to tell you, if I'm going to stick with my preseason analysis of the Buffalo Bills winning the AFC East and making a run in the playoffs, you got to win this football game. So Thursday, right now, I'm going Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and I kind of want to be right there with you. One thing I'm keeping an eye on, I haven't seen today's practice report, but I know that Tre'Davious White did not practice yesterday with that ankle issue, and he's a big part. If they don't have Tre'Davious White, that Bills defense is bad. He is a major factor for that defense. So I don't know if you've seen that report today. I'm not seeing it for today. I know we didn't practice yesterday. Two very beatable defenses. I think there's a lot. I ended up taking the over. I think I got it at 55.5. I took the over in this game.
Who were you looking at for the practice report? Because Thursday's report is after. Was it the Bills you were looking for?
Yeah, Tre'Davious White, if he practiced today. I'm only seeing
Tre'Davious White was limited today, so that would put him on track to play on Sunday.
Okay,
yes.
and so that's a big deal because they need someone to deal with DeAndre Hopkins. I actually like Christian Kirk quite a bit on the other side this week against Josh Norman, who was limited yesterday and should come back this week. Lots of points. Again, this is another one of those 50-50 games with two teams that, Arizona sort of made a statement 2 weeks ago when they won that close game against Russell Wilson in Seattle. And then last week they lose the close one against Tua and the Dolphins. So how well can we trust them in these big close games? And we saw Buffalo obviously beat up on Seattle as well. So the slight edge to Buffalo for me, good weather, lots of points. I actually like the over, and I know it's a big number. And you need a lot to go right, but there's just not a lot for these defenses. I mean, that Arizona secondary, even with Patrick Peterson, not very good. That Bills defense, even with Tre'Davious White, not very good. Both these quarterbacks on an absolute roll. Should be a lot of points. I could see both teams being in the 30s here. I like the over, and if I'm picking a side, I'm going to agree with you and take the East Coast team coming west. I'll take Buffalo slightly, and the line's at 1.5, 2.5, so it makes a lot of sense. Won't shock me if either team wins this game, but I'll take the Bills right now.
Boy, I gotta Kyler Murray is quickly becoming one of my favorite players to watch. I don't know how you stop him. I'm still shocked they lost last week. Credit the Dolphins defense coming up big late in that fourth quarter on a couple of really fourth and short type plays to ensure that victory. But I watch Kyler Murray, and it almost doesn't matter. Like rush him, he's all like a faster speed burst of Russell Wilson, where that rush comes down on Russ. He just says, "Hey, get away from me. I'm going to make this play outside the pocket." He is an amazing quarterback. Kudos to them they're going to be a fun team to watch. But this is going to be a good game here, 56.5. As you're a big DFS guy, look out for some of these guys putting up some big-time numbers in this game. 277, 278. So we go out from the West Coast back to the East Coast. How about those Miami Dolphins here settling in the 4 o'clock time spots here on the East Coast? Good stuff here. Justin Herbert, first-round pick. Tua Tagovailoa, first-round pick. These guys were the ones that you could flip-flop. Who's going to take who? Is Tua going to go to the Dolphins? Tua going to go to the Chargers? Settled in perfectly. Justin Herbert, through his starts in the NFL, averaging over 306 yards per game, which is outrageous. And if you watch the games, because I know if you're on the East Coast or you don't have the ticket, you don't get to watch a lot of Chargers football, not in prime time. This kid is dealing. He can make every single throw. And I know a lot of, Austin Eckler was out. I'm just going to be out on the Chargers. This offense can move the football. They're doing a running back by committee. The offensive line is decent. You got a good tight end thrown in, some elite wide receivers, and this kid can make every single throw, short, intermediate, and deep. This is going to be a good game to watch. And having said that, the Dolphins opened up at 2.5, and they've won 4 in a row against some pretty good football teams. But I'm looking at this game, and despite the Chargers, and again, Tuesday I talked about, the Chargers can't win. I'm just not trusting them. I was on the Dolphins side. I'm coming around here on Thursday here to the Chargers side, just the way they're in every single football game, and I'm getting elite quarterback play out of my young quarterback. Are we going to lean on Tua Tagovailoa? Can he do it again this week? The one interesting piece, keep in mind, he's very athletic. He looked great last week against Arizona, against a little bit better defensive line for the Rams. He didn't have to do much, and they still won that football game. But keep in mind, Joey Bosa's coming back at one defensive end. Ingram is at the other defensive end. That is enough to push that pocket and put some pressure on this young quarterback. Right, again, Tuesday, I liked Miami. I'm coming around to the Chargers in this game, Kyle. I really am.
Man, it's tough. Like, you could make the argument the Chargers should be a 2-loss team right now. They just find ways to lose, and that's the problem. They can't figure out how to win. Like, when you look at the young quarterbacks, even though I thought Tua looked great last week, Herbert's been playing for a few weeks now, and you can't tell he's a rookie. I mean, for all intents and purposes, they should have won that game last week. He threw an absolute beautiful ball. Last play of the game,
Twice.
tight end.
Twice.
I mean, yes. I mean, he's an outstanding young quarterback, and I feel bad for him that he's not getting the wins. This is a really, really tough game to pick a side. I completely agree. Look, I have to take Miami because the Chargers have not shown, the coaching staff and the defense have not shown the ability to win these close games.
Right.
I think Herbert is absolutely terrific. I do like the over in this game. I think there's points scored. Miami does have a good secondary. They're a little bit weaker in the slot where Keenan Allen lines up 47% of the time. So we should see a lot of Nick Needham, which is going to be a nice advantage. And there could be a little bit tougher sledding for Mike Williams and Jalen Guyton on the outside against Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. The Chargers secondary, even though they did trade away Desmond King, still pretty solid. And you mentioned Bosa and Ingram. Still like the over. I think the good weather, these two quarterbacks sort of dueling it out, both teams getting into the 20s makes a lot of sense. Again, I think it's another close game. But I'm going to take the team that has shown the ability to win these close games over the ability of the team who's shown that they can't even if the Chargers are up by 2 touchdowns, you can't trust them. They're sort of the Falcons of the AFC. So I guess I'd have to lean the Dolphins. Won't shock me either way. The safer bet for me feels like the over 48 and a half's right there. Another really tough game. The 4 o'clock window, the afternoon window, so good this week.
How about, half a dozen games at 4 o'clock. Like, this is why the NFL should. I know why they stagger at 1 o'clock, because they want you watching a singular 4 o'clock game so you get all the eyeballs. But it's beautiful to see how many games here at 4 o'clock. And Tua Tagovailoa was awesome on the road in the second half. But also what we have to keep our mind on as well, like to give out those little nuggets of what we're looking at. I'm a huge home team guy in the NFL because obviously the travel conditions, you're staying in a hotel, but when you come to the game and 70,000 people are actively rooting against you and interfering with the way you play offense, it's not there anymore. That's why you're seeing record scoring in the NFL, and that's why rookie quarterbacks can go on the road. How about last week? You're talking about Tua as a rookie environment. You would have 75,000 people screaming in a dome in Arizona against Tua. It was dead silent in that place. He was able to operate the same way Justin Herbert's been able to do it this year as well. Good game, 2 young quarterbacks. Let's get it to Pittsburgh. 251, 252. Cincinnati and Joe Burrow coming to town off of a nice little rest going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Looks like we will, unless Big Ben tests positive for COVID, he will be active and ready to play in this ball game. And look, the bad knee injury, doesn't practice a lot already during the week. He'll miss a couple practices, but I think if there's one quarterback that can miss some practices, what does Big Ben really need to do out on the field? Knows the game plan, can still sit in virtually, get some, tape and some rubbing of his knee there when he comes in to get that treatment. He should be good to go this weekend, unless, again, he gets the COVID virus. But looking at this game overall, agree with the line movement before it was taken off the board. I'm seeing 7s here, but it really hasn't activated or opened until we see Big Ben playing. But I know you, Kyle, which are a lot of people jumping on saying this is the chance Cincinnati can stay in this one. I'm a little bit hesitant because when I see that dog that gets a lot of love from the public, and I look at the one thing Cincinnati struggles with is heavy pressure from a pass rush. We know Pittsburgh is going to bring it, but my question to you is, can Cincinnati stand up against this offense from the Pittsburgh Steelers and not get bullied over? Because the one thing we do know, if you ask Joe Burrow to throw 40 to 45 times, he'll do it, and he'll be somewhat successful at it.
Yeah, and they're going to throw the ball quickly. And you sort of look at this, like for me, I think people are jumping on the Cincinnati bandwagon for the wrong reasons. They're seeing, no Ben Roethlisberger, so I want to jump on that side. I, even with Big Ben playing, like Cincinnati to cover just because when you look at sort of these teams with the quick passing game, even the game they won against Baltimore, which is not a great passing team, they still were able to move the football. Look what Garrett Gilbert was able to do against his Pittsburgh defense last week. Joe Burrow, without Joe Mixon, they're not going to be forcing the run. One of the things that Pittsburgh really does well is stop the run. But when you look in the slot and you look on the right side away from Joe Hayden, Steven Nelson, Mike Hilton, they actually struggle against these quick passes, and the Bengals certainly have the wideouts who can get open. T. Higgins, A.J. Green, Tyler Boyd's going to be in the slot. Big advantage there in the slot. And listen, I've been burned enough trying to bet against Joe Burrow, and I've made enough now the last few weeks betting on him to cover. So if I'm getting over a touchdown, which is what it was when they took the game off the board at 7.5, I think the Bengals can do enough to cover. And when you look at the, I know Juju Smith-Schuster has been battling that knee thing. He's going to play. Deontay Johnson was a little banged up as well, but they're both going to play. When you look at William Jackson, et cetera, in that Cincinnati secondary, they've actually been better than advertised. I know it's easy to run the ball on them against them. Well, so was Dallas, and James Conner wasn't able to get anything going. So if Pittsburgh would have lost last week, maybe I'd see a little bit more of a motivated team. And I know it was a close game and sort of nationally embarrassed by making it that close against a dreadful Dallas team with Garrett Gilbert at quarterback. I just think Cincinnati has enough weapons. And now that they're not going to be forcing the ball to Joe Mixon trying to run on that front seven, a lot of quick passes, those weapons have advantages on the outside and in the slot against Pittsburgh. So I think the Bengals cover here. Still think Pittsburgh wins a close game, but the Bengals cover.
And I can agree with you on that too as well. 250 people watching live. Thank you for spending your Thursday. Talk a little bit of NFL football with us. One of the more watched shows that we have on the channel throughout the week. And that is a credit to you guys coming into the chat box and bringing it every single time I look up there. Tons and tons of chatter out there. We'll see what takes place here in this Cincinnati game, Pittsburgh. We'll make sure that Big Ben is in. And again, we always like to get some nice plugs in here, Kyle, for our show on Sunday, 12 o'clock. Join us 1 hour ripping and roaring right up to 1 o'clock kickoff. All that late breaking information, we'll have that for you. And I know a lot of you guys tune in with us and have some fun on Sunday afternoons. Let's keep it rolling at 425, 269, 270. And I coined the phrase big boy football out there in the NFC West. No surprise, it's coming again this Sunday. Russell Wilson versus Jared Goff, rested and ready. Los Angeles Rams team. How do you get after and disrupt the offense for Seattle? You have a big number 99 in the middle that can wreak havoc and bust your offense up one man by one man up the middle. Now, taking a look at this line, opens up at 1.5, staying in that same range, twos across the board at some outlets, 55.5 drops to 54.5. And I actually agree with that line movement down. And I don't usually agree with it when you're talking about Seattle, but it's just the way the offense operates for me, Kyle, for the Los Angeles Rams. The big time chunk plays. Sometimes you get Jared Goff in an offense where he's rolling and they're getting him out of the pocket. No pass rush. He can make those plays, which again, Seattle doesn't have the greatest pass rush or defense in the world. But this is one of those offenses that you figure like they keep it on the ground. They're running constant crossing routes. Cooper Kupp is banged up. We'll see if he makes it to the starting line on Sunday. I do like the Rams in this game. The Rams are home. It's going to be on turf. I think that defense is going to be able to hang around with Seattle, and enough plays are made by the Rams. But I got to tell you, my confidence level always comes down to Jared Goff, because how many times, Kyle, do you bet on the Rams? You're like, damn it, Jared Goff, just make the throw. What are you scared in the pocket for? I'm tired of running into that. But also that same feeling I had last week. So, hey, I think Russell Wilson could pull it off. That defense was abysmal, and I don't know how it gets better. The Rams should be able to put up points, but it's always that deciding factor. Am I putting the favorite in Jared Goff's role, and can I live with that?
Yeah, that's the thing. Jared Goff, you can never trust Jared Goff, right? Sometimes he looks fantastic, and sometimes he looks like a used car salesman. I mean, that's just what he looks like. It's true, and he actually does look like he'd be a pretty good used car salesman, sort of schmarmy, and probably cheat on his wife a little bit with like the waitress at the local hotel. Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. But then you look at this Seattle defense, and you look at the strength of the Rams offense. Cooper Kupp looks like he's on track to play. It's a wrist thing. Sean McVay thinks he'll play. Darrell Henderson looks like he's going to play. Then you look at the Seattle defense. Absolutely terrible. It's the worst defense in the league, especially in the secondary. They allow the most yards, receptions, targets, completions, third most touchdowns to opposing wide receivers, allow the most fantasy points to quarterbacks, just across the board, they're god-awful. And then you look at this week, KJ Wright dealing with an ankle issue. Their two corners, Shaq Griffin and Quentin Dunbar, dealing with a hamstring and knee issue. Chris Carson may be back, which would be good for that team. Carlos Hyde's not going to play. So there's a lot of questions. As bad as that defense is, somehow it could possibly get worse. And you look at the strength of the Rams offense, it's Robert Woods, it's Cooper Kupp, it's Tyler Higbee, it's that passing game, and that sort of weird inside running game. So all signs point to the Rams. I do think it's a trap. Of all the games this week, this one feels like a trap. We're down on Seattle. They looked like dog bleep against the Bills last week. The Rams, have all the tools. They have a better defense, capable wide receivers, etc. And they have the sort of secondary that can give the Seattle outside targets problems, especially if the running backs are limited. So I do favor the Rams. I actually like the over 54.5, even though that's a scary number. I didn't bet that personally with my money, but I think that's about right. Sort of this 30-27 game will not surprise me in this game whatsoever. It feels like a trap, but I got to take the Rams. The Seattle defense is so bad. They're so bad.
No, and last week you're looking at Russell Wilson saying, Russ has to lead me to victory. The defense was so bad he had no chance of doing that. And when I just look at defense versus defense, I know that pass rush is going to be able to give some problems to the Seattle offensive line and to Russell Wilson. And that's what I lean on this environment. Just a shame that you're right. You lean on Jared Goff and say, I've seen it so many times where he's just not making the right play out here, even though he has a really good offensive line, weapons at wide receiver, and one of the top 5 play callers in the NFL. And sometimes it just doesn't click here. Let's keep going. Keep it out there a little bit with the NFC West. Moving east, San Francisco and New Orleans, 271, 272. Nick Mullins seems like he might be out there on an island again this week. What was not to like about the Saints, who resurgence came back. 3 wide receivers come back. That offense lights up a really good defense with Tampa Bay. Now you're going to get an underhanded defense again with the San Francisco 49ers at home on turf. Last week, New Orleans, they could have had 50-plus points if they wanted to against Tampa Bay. Outdoors in a little bit of wind and rain, perfect conditions, healthy offense. Opens up at 9, and now we're seeing 9.5, some 8.5s across the board. 51s turned into 48.5s, and that's specific reason because New Orleans has a good defense. And what are we getting out of San Francisco? Deebo Samuel doesn't look like he's going to play. You will get Ayuk back, but how many one of those running backs are you going to actually see on the field for San Francisco? Not a good look for me. I know they play tough, but San Francisco showed me a lot last Thursday when they got rolled up on the field. And the only way they made it close was a couple BS touchdown drives at the end of the game. That was an absolute blowout, and I fancy the same sort of game plan coming in for New Orleans. Do I want to take the game full and say, you know what, they can win it by double digits? They should be able to do that, but I'm looking at sort of that way. New Orleans is really good. Their game plan should be stout. They should be up by a touchdown at the break, 6.5 or less. I'm really interested in New Orleans here in this game first half.
Yeah, just take New Orleans first half, full time. Listen, this hurts me. You know, you don't know how bad. Like, I am not happy, especially coming into this year, coming off the Super Bowl last year, talking about my 49ers not even being able to cover a double-digit spread. But the fact of the matter is the Saints have all of the tools to shut them down. I know we're getting Ayuk back and Kendrick Bourne, it's on and off, but look, that secondary, Lattimore, Jenkins, fantastic. The pass rush, fantastic. Kamara, Michael Thomas, I know they're saying he's limited in practice. That's just going to be par for the course as he's coming back from injury. Emmanuel Sanders, the whole thing. And sometimes you say, okay, they're coming off a huge win, facing off against a team with a ton of injuries, so maybe they play down to their competition. Oh, no. San Francisco didn't embarrass the Saints, but put up 46 points on his defense last year in New Orleans, or 44. I always forget the score of that game. It was just a ton of points. Both teams were in the 40s. New Orleans wants revenge. It knocked New Orleans out of a first-round bye. New Orleans is at home. They're on a roll. They're going to beat the crap out of my 49ers. It's depressing. It's sad. This will be a game that I hope I don't see a ton of on Red Zone, especially in this 4 o'clock window. Should see a bunch of Buffalo, Arizona, Seattle, and the Rams. My 49ers are going to get beat up this week. No reason to bet on them. You got to like the Saints. I guess this might be another game where I take the under because I don't think the 49ers offense will be able to respond. Now, they burned me last week with that nonsense touchdown against Green Bay. New Orleans has a much, much, much better defense than the Green Bay Packers do. I like New Orleans. This could be like a 35-10 type of game for the Saints this week.
Yeah, and I do think because I would lean towards more points than not, because if anything showed you last week, the one thing Kyle Shanahan has a lot of pride in is he's an offensive guy and he knows stats mean everything to him. Hey, well, why'd your team only score 10 points? Nobody in 2 years is going to look and say, well, there's 6 games under 10 points when they're hitting 17 or 24 when they shouldn't be even caring about a football game. That's big for an over, because if you're going to be calling timeouts with 10 seconds to go down 3 touchdowns to punch another one in, that's big for over bettors. And as I like to say, there's a guy on that New Orleans team that plays quarterback, knows a little bit of something about putting up some fake hollow statistics as well. So I think I lean towards the over, even though that New Orleans defense is really legit here. Night game, 8:20. Lamar Jackson, Cam Newton, 2 mobile quarterbacks, the OGs. See a lot of respect here. Lamar Jackson, great guy, giving a lot of props to Cam Newton as the original OG and Superman. But coming into this game, if you look at certain metrics here, Pro Football Focus has the New England Patriots as a top 10 offense in the NFL, which is odd to see. I don't know obviously it's not the eye test that they pass through. You're getting N'Keal Harry probably back in this game, a little bit added weapons. That's really what I'm using for their offense. I don't really know where it goes, because when bully ball comes to town, and you're an offense that's predicated on a running quarterback and a running game, doesn't really add up to too many points here when you go against Baltimore. But now, having said that, you got to play the favorite role. You're open up at 6.5. It's 7s across the board right now, over under 44, 43.5 in that range. Baltimore scores more than 20 points damn near every time they take the field. So my question to you, Kyle, is if you're looking for a New England victory, they got to get 24 points. I don't know about that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And you got Cam Newton battling a sore neck. Like, oh, is a sore neck going to make you any more inaccurate than you already are? Get the hell out of here. And I actually thought it was kind of funny, the reports out of Baltimore, Lamar Jackson saying, oh, the defenses know what play we're going to do. Of course they do. We all know what play you're going to do.
Yes.
You're going to do a run-pass option, and 80% of the time, Lamar is going to keep the ball. It's not like you're tricking them, dropping back, and throwing combination routes on the outside. You're an inadequate pocket passer. So, of course, every team knows what you're going to do. My dog knows what you're going to do. Everyone knows what you're going to do. That being said, that Baltimore defense is going to be way too tough for New England. It's sort of going to be that scenario we saw with the Colts last week, only the Patriots offense is even worse and sort of different with the running aspect of Cam Newton. But New England's offense, no shot at moving the football. And if anyone believes New England's a top 5 or top 10 defense right now, I got some magic beans to sell you. You can buy them. You can go right up the beanstalk. You can steal the gold from the giant, take the golden harp, all that. That's the dumbest stat. Pro Football Focus, I do look into them quite a bit, and I love them quite a bit, but that is absolutely ridiculous. The slowest defense, the slowest team in the NFL is the New England Patriots. Lamar Jackson should feast on this. I like Baltimore. I think they win this game by double digits. Lower scoring, because I don't trust that Baltimore offense. Went from 2nd to 23rd this year. Another one of those, like we saw last week, the 24-10, 21-10 type thing with the Colts. I think you see that again. I like the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, if we take a look at some rain in the forecast there, so still the over getting pumped up a little bit. I think it's just because Baltimore doesn't care who they play. They automatically get 20 points to start the game and see how high they can run that up. I do think Baltimore's the better team. I would be shocked if New England won, but I do see the pundits say, hey, it's one of those games where you're getting 7, they'll rise up. I just don't see it out of New England at this point. And if you're just going to say, well, we like to run the football, well, Baltimore relishes that on the opposite side on defense. No Calais Campbell this week, but looks like you will get back LJ Ford and also your top cornerback, one of the better ones in the NFL, Marlon Humphrey. We'll see if Stephon Gilmore plays this week, but it sort of seems like he's checked out on the season and we're not going to win, so what am I even doing here? And it looks like Bill Belichick's not trying to ruffle any feathers in that spot. One more game we'll talk about Monday Night Football before we get to Kelsey Kramer and her Pick 6 contest bets, 275, 276, Minnesota and Chicago. Opens up at 2.5, Kyle. We sit at 2.5 all the way across the board, opened up at 44.5 as a total, sits at 43.5. If we take a look at some weather conditions here on Monday Night Football, around 40 degrees, 12 miles an hour. That's basically perfect weather for mid-November in Chicago. I went back and watched the offensive performance from the Chicago Bears, which was ludicrously bad. The route combinations were disgusting. Nick Foles was under siege the entire game. I don't know what Matt Nagy was calling on 3rd and 1 and 4th down plays. It was overall embarrassing. And then you look at the end of the game like, hey, they threw for over 300 yards. They scored 17 points and were in the game against Tennessee. That really wasn't the case. Their defense played so well. Their defense deserves so much more than what the Chicago offense is giving them to help out. But then you took a look now. The Minnesota Vikings saying like, hey, if there's a couple games postponed here with COVID coming back, we have a legitimate chance of making the playoffs since they're going to allow damn near every team, it seems like, in the NFL into the playoffs at that point. Dalvin Cook looks like the best player in football. Kirk Cousins is working off of play action. You have 2 decent wide receivers that you can move the football with Minnesota. Their defense stinks, but the Chicago Bears offense stinks even worse. I see that line, I sort of get a chuckle because 6 out of every 10 tickets here coming in on Minnesota, and I agree with it. But they ain't moving that line all that much yet. No. I want to see if the dam breaks and it goes to 3+ in this game because the only way I can look is to Minnesota in this type of game. The only way.
Oh, God, it makes me absolutely sick because I cannot believe that I'm going to tell someone to take Kirk Cousins in primetime. He's so terrible. He's so awful. And listen, I hate Kirk Cousins. He got the Cooler K name, and he's more handsome and, makes slightly a little bit more money, even though SBR is trying to compete there. But, I mean, now Chicago's probably going to be without David Montgomery. Still didn't practice today. I know he's got that extra day. If they're without David Montgomery, are we looking at Ryan Nall and Cordero Patterson are going to be their running backs? Oh, God, this it makes me sick. It's close. I hate Kirk Cousins in primetime. He's Andy Dalton light in primetime. And if you guys remember a few weeks ago, I warned you about Andy Dalton in primetime. Warned everyone all week long. And he got spanked, and he was dreadful because he sucks in primetime. So does Kirk Cousins. However, Nick Foles, awful. No David Montgomery. What the hell do they do? Got to give the slight edge, as sick as it makes me. And again, I'm not going to be betting this at all. I'll be prop betting that Monday night game on our Monday night show. I'll lean the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, we'll be betting it quite a bit there, and that's a nice little segue into our Monday Night Football show. Come join us, have fun on a Monday night party. Thought we were going to get a terrible game with New England and the Jets. Fun all the way through. Join us on Mondays. Now, it's time to talk a little bit of Pick 6 contest right here. If you guys haven't gotten in yet, SBRpicks.com/Pick 6 NFL. The First Lady of Football joins us today on a Thursday to talk some Pick 6 contest winners. Kelsey, what's good?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, look, it worked. It worked. Hey, no mute today. We're in it. We're in it, Kelsey. We're in it.
Yeah, we are. Wait, we're in one.
I like the official pin, too. Yeah, it's a good look. And I love the Christmas decorations.
1 year older. Looks smarter, you know?
Yes, big birthday week.
Now we're ready to get after it. 6 plays on the docket, none bigger than tonight's game as we take a look with Indianapolis and Tennessee. And again, we'll circle back in just a couple of minutes, go over some prop plays on this game and sort of put a nice little bow on that one. What are we looking for tonight? Indianapolis, Tennessee. Indianapolis goes on the road, AFC South tilt. Which way are we going here tonight?
Tonight I'm taking Tennessee. You don't know what you're going to get. It's Thursday night, prime time, and these two teams are coming off short rest. But I don't know if the Colts are going to recover from the Ravens' defense, and that's tough right there. And then Derrick Henry's known for rebounding. I think he's going to have a big game tonight, even though the Colts are good at stopping the run. But Titans.
Yeah, roughly a pick 'em across the board here in this instance now as a slight favorite to Indianapolis. Should be a good one tonight. I'm really looking forward to it. 2 of my favorite coaches in the NFL, Mike Vrabel and also obviously Frank Reich. I'm actually hoping that line swings back as a maybe favorite towards Tennessee. We'll see what happens here. Got a couple hours before game time. Second game we'll talk about. What's a game we can't talk about here, right? We're going to go to the NFC South, and that's the Carolina Panthers coming up versus Tom Brady. Didn't look good on Sunday Night Football. Is that enough for Teddy Bridgewater in that favorite underdog role that he loves and does so well at? Covered last week against Kansas City. Is he covering this week again here, Kelsey?
Yep, I love this Carolina defense, and I'm starting to like Mike Davis. Christian McCaffrey is out. So I don't know if they're going to win, but I definitely think they can cover. They've been able to keep up even without him, so that's not going to be a big deal. AB was hyped up. Hopefully he comes back and scores something this week. And Tom Brady, he's going to have to do something. He's got to be mad about that. Last week.
He was bad last week, Kyle, wasn't he? He was bad.
Oh, God, he was so bad. Just the whole team was.
When he had like a 40.8.
It was really bad. It was shocking. I sat on this show and said, and even on Sunday, the more I think about it, I'm taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, there you go. I'm a dumbass. So there you go. It's pretty obvious, but I'm just a little. I like Carolina. Carolina's made me a lot of money this year, but I think the Bucks are going to be pissed off. So I don't think you're crazy. You can make a great argument for taking Carolina. It's going to be tough. I'm leaning the Bucks early this week.
How about this one coming up out there in the Dome once again, Buffalo and Arizona? The question of the week usually is who's going to win the football game, but I think the secondary question is, did we bleach the white shoes or did we just leave them alone,
I haven't done anything with them yet. I hate bleach. Don, you're always on my Twitter. I love it.
And see that? Yeah.
It's a team effort. It's a team effort.
That's being a good host. You got to do your background checks here, being a good host. That's just the way it is. We see things. We got to report on them. Yep.
Kyle's always mad. So are you, Donnie. You're just a hater. You were hating on Notre Dame.
I hate them. I do.
I'm not always mad on there. I can't get a PS5 right now. It's a pain in my ass. I'm pissed.
And I saw you try to stay up till midnight. I can't even stay up past 9:30 anymore. But anyways, that game, I went with the Cardinals at first on Monday night when I did my picks. But I'm leaning towards more of Josh Allen. I actually have Josh Allen as my quarterback for fantasy. I also have Russell Wilson, but I started Russ last week, which I'm so mad about. The Cardinals, I've seen them in person twice now. No, not to brag, but I'm
Name drop.
keeping up with them more, and their kicker, they choke. They choke because of Zane. And Kyle Murray, he's bad when he's rushed. So I think the Bills and their defense are going to know how to handle Murray and win.
Yeah, and you'll get a good secondary view of that.
What happens.
Some points out there too. Yeah,
that's what happens when you're out partying with the kicker for the Cardinals. At the game, since you're at the game and all the guys. Now Zane Gonzalez can't kick a 48-yard field goal because he got drunk with Kelsey. So there you go.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, no, not at all, not at all.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the over for that game too. Cardinals have been good at that. So.
Yeah, I do too.
Now, there should be a lot of points now. We're talking about some points here, heading now down the South Beach between the Chargers and the Miami Dolphins. Now, is this a little recency bias here? You go to a game, you see Tua, they win. Are we just piggybacking off the Dolphins? Or are we believers, Kelsey, in those Miami Dolphins here going up against the Chargers?
I'm jumping on the Tua bandwagon. I love that guy. The Chargers are allowing 32.8 points on defense. What? Why are you laughing? Averaging the past 5 games. Why are you laughing, Donnie?
I don't know what happened.
We have a good time. Yeah, we're just having a good time.
Wait, did I? But no, are you laughing because I'm taking Miami and Tua?
Nope. I respect the decision here. I'm respect it.
I actually agree with you on Miami as well. I don't know what the hell he might be laughing. I make dumb faces sometimes when people are talking, so he could be laughing at that. I don't know.
And the Miami Dolphins are yielding an average of just 20 points. So I like both the offense and defense on the Dolphins. I need to get a jersey. I'm on them. I'm sorry. Chargers stink.
Now, speaking about getting jerseys, I'm actually glad you brought that up because I want to segue into a little jersey purchase today that I made. My favorite player in the NFL, an inspiration to everybody. And as I wrote on Twitter, I will be using this for my grandchild once he starts his first high school football game at quarterback. I ordered, Kelsey, a Ben DiNucci Dallas Cowboys jersey today because when I see like Haley's Comet come around once every 80 years and I see that kid start in the NFL, I got to buy in. I bought into it. Do you approve of an Eagles fan buying a Ben DiNucci jersey that will be in my background as early as next week?
Oh, my gosh. I respect it. Are you getting a Joe Flacco jersey to match it, too?
No, like, because Joe Flacco was a good, competent quarterback. Like, I'm a motivational type speaking guy. So when I look and I say, look, no matter how, like, if you were a salesperson, boy, I came in last in my team this month in sales, or you go to high school and you say, or college, I got the lowest grade in my class. You could sit that kid down, Kelsey, and say, you know what? I saw Ben DiNucci play in the NFL. You can do it as well. I mean, it's everything we strive for here in the United States.
I love that kid. I mean, I like his tweets. I don't love him, but
and just
maybe we'll get him on the show for something like that. But I could not be more proud of myself today to pushing the button on NFL.com and then going ahead on Amazon and buying the frame that I'm going to put it on my wall. It just felt like my whole day is like it was just fantastic. But anyway, that was a great segue into buying some jerseys there. So I'm going to use that coming up here. Next game, we'll talk about Seattle and the Rams. I got to tell you, me and Kyle talked about this already. This is a tough one. Russell Wilson, Jared Goff, Rams rested and ready. Who takes the cake in this one here, Kelsey?
Rest, too much rest can also mean like not that good, you know. But I like Russ. I think the Chargers going to let him cook. And Jared Goff, I don't trust him. He's only averaging 269 yards passing. But their defense is obviously monstrous. I don't know. I just always put my money on Russell Wilson, and he's been playing not like his MVP self. But I think he's going to come out and win this one. If
by the way,
Bears can win, like Russ Wilson can win.
No, he can definitely win. I got to say odds, though, Kelsey. In the next year to year and a half at your place, will you have any let Russ cook like utensils in there? Will that be in your house?
Probably.
That's a pretty good move, Kyle. Don't you think, though? Sound like let Russ cook paraphernalia? Pretty good.
Yeah,
stuff.
I love that. I love that. I was just about to copyright it. Damn it.
That's a good Christmas gift.
Well, it is.
You got let Russ cook. You got on SBR. We have the merchandise coming out for purchase at Christmas. Let Kyle smoke and drink. I mean, those shirts are coming out.
I would love that. Although I'm supposed to be quitting smoking, it's going really well. Let me tell you, really, really well.
There you go. Hey, get out there and run a couple laps around. See what we can do. 275, 276, Kelsey. Monday Night Football in the Windy City. know my affinity for Nick Foles over here. We got Kirk Cousins coming to town. Dome team going outdoors. The Bears can't get out of their own way on offense. Is that enough for Minnesota to win this football game, or are you backing those Bears?
Yeah, I'm all the way Dalvin Cook. That kid is a monster. I love him and Tua. If him and Tua are on the same team, it'd be awesome. But I think the Falcons' defense and offense is a lot better than, they're facing just the Bears' defense. Bears doesn't really have much to offer on the offense side. So I think this might be, I don't know if it'll be easier to win because it's Monday Night Football, but Vikings got him.
What do you think, Kyle? Vikings Monday Night Football. Hey, look, we're going to be on. We're going to be on live. Maybe the First Lady of Football will be on with us live on Monday. We'll have to get that situated out here. So,
we got to make sure she's not hanging out with Zane Gonzalez or Tua or something, whatever the hell's going on out there in Arizona.
We're getting everybody jobs out there in Phoenix, so she's putting that work in out there.
Like nerds.
That's it. But, I'm leaning the Vikings, too, even though Kirk Cousins is such trash on primetime. It's like, oh, God, this is it's a tough one. But, yeah, I'm with the Vikings because I think she mentioned it. Dalvin Cook is a big difference maker. If he stays healthy, they get him going. No David Montgomery for Chicago, even though Kirk Cousins in primetime is terrible. Yes, I know. I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep. And how about here? Mitch Burkowski says, I have a crush on Kelsey, but use the K for crush and Kelsey. Is that any bonus points for you there?
Oh, I love that. That.
There you go, Mitch.
So, yeah.
Well, got some smart viewers out there in the chat box, but we do have a Thursday Night Football game on tonight that we're going to wrap around and pick on again here. 121, 122, Indianapolis and Tennessee. Up-to-date line movements here. -1s across the board. 48.5 is a total. 49 some are showing up here on the board. Kelsey, we're going to start with you first. I know we have a play tonight on Tennessee winning that football game on the Pick Six contest at -1.5. Do we have any prop bets from you, Kelsey, that we are looking at tonight on Thursday Night Football?
Yes. A.J. Brown, anytime touchdown, that's up in the air, but the past 5 games, he has scored a tutty. Derrick Henry, I think he's going to play really well tonight. I'm taking the over 78.5 rushing yards. And then Tannehill, I'm under 248.5 passing.
Oh,
there we go. So picks, and again, that's going to be a key in this game. If Derrick Henry stays under 80 yards in this game, you're probably going to look for an easy victory out of the Indianapolis Colts. Kyle, we'll go to you next here again. Maybe a side play total, or of course a prop bet pick that we can look at tonight.
Yeah, well, obviously I took the Colts again. I think it could go either way, so you're not crazy betting either side of that. For me, the one prop that really stood out to me, the Tennessee Titans secondary, still without Adoree Jackson. I like Michael Pittman Jr., made his return last week, targeted 7 times. I think he gets over 3.5 catches tonight, and his total was 34.5 yards. So I took the over 3.5 and over 34.5 yards receiving in a parlay at +275. He's going to be seeing a bunch of Breon Borders. That's right. Let me know if any of you have heard of Breon Borders. I can tell you have not. He's been targeted on 26% of his defensive routes ran against. Michael Pittman Jr., the nice advantage over there, so I like him over 3.5, over 34.5. And I also like over 22.5 completions for Phillip Rivers. Clean pocket, bad pass rush. Give me Phillip Rivers over 22.5 completions as well.
There you go, Indianapolis Colts. I think they do win the football game tonight, so I'm going to go with the -1. And in a COVID environment, I would never be looking at a road team heading out on Thursday Night Football, but it's an interesting year. Road teams on Thursday night have had a lot of success, and I'm going to try to continue that tonight with the Colts at -1. And also a quick prop bet here, Nyheim Hines rushing and receiving over 38.5 yards at +110. That was available at DraftKings just a short while ago, so I'm going to sit on that one here. A lot of fun to go over on Thursday Night Football, but guys, also keep in mind, Sunday afternoon action, 12 p.m. We'll be live once again, both myself and Kyle Purviance here, bringing you up to kickoff at 1 o'clock, getting you ready for those games. And then, of course, we'll wrap it around on Monday Night Football, have some fun talking with that Minnesota Vikings and Chicago Bears games. A Thursday football in the books. Good luck to your picks this weekend, guys. I'm Donnie Seymour. She's Kelsey Kramer. He is Kyle Purviance. We are SportsBookReview.com, and this was your NFL show, Week 10 Thursday. Good luck.